At the Fishhouses is a poem that was published in 1955 and was part of a Cold Spring collection. By Elizabeth Bishop. She was born on February 8th of 1911. She was a famous poet born in Massachusetts.
Throughout her writing experience, it can be acknowledged that one of her biggest influences was the poet Marianne Moore. When talking about the poem At the Fishhouses, Bishop used various allusions from Moore's poem A Grave.
But first, before analyzing the poem, we should summarize it. Bishop starts off by describing a cold evening at the Fishhouses. The buildings are small and simple, with pointed roofs and storerooms. They seem to go well with the setting. It is a regular fishing town, where everybody is dedicated to fishing. And she states that the whole town has a strong smell of fish.
An old man is netting at the fish houses. She seems to acknowledge who the old man is. She says it is a friend of her grandfather. The old man sits smoking, waiting for a boat to come. They talk about the decline in the population and of codfish and herring.
He is removing the scales from the fish with an old knife. Some of the scales of the fish stick to his vest and thumb. The speaker describes how the whole city is gray and covered in emerald moss.
The sea is gigantic and covers the entire horizon. The color of the sea is gray, yet clear.
It is ice cold because it is December, so cold that your hand would ache if you touched it.
She describes the movement of the waves, how they pass on top of the rocks over and over again. The tide of the water is slowly rising.
Bishop mentions the rocks near the shore. They are surrounded by water which covers them from time to time. Most of the rocks are sharp, with pointy edges, but others are round or bluish. The rocks appear translucent because they are covered in salt water.
The fish are spread across the beach or sit in the down. The scales of the fish are in layers and are described as beautiful. They look transparent and are covered in flies that are also transparent. The speaker describes the port, the beach, the waves, and a seal.
The capstan is abandoned and clear of grass behind the fish houses. The capstan is made of wood and has some parts made of metal. A capstan is a revolving cylinder with a vertical axis used for winding a rope or cable, powered by a motor or pushed around by levers. The handles are stained for not being used. The wood is probably rotten. The parts made of iron have become rusted because of the lack of use and abandonment.
The fishing boats come to the shore and unload the fishes they got onto the beach. She tells the story of a seal that sometimes emerges out of the water every afternoon. The The seal was interested in her and in music, especially Baptist hymns. The speaker sang, "A mighty fortress is our God." This is an allusion to a Baptist hymn.
Now, let's analyze the poem. Let's talk about the audience first. This poem is directed towards poem lovers and Bishop's fanatics, as well as people who lived during the 1950s.
One of the themes present in the poem is that Elizabeth Bishop explores nature through her senses in her free verse poem at the Fishhouses.
She not only uses visual imagery to accomplish this, but uses all of her five senses, including smell, sight, touch, hear, and taste. For example, she states, "The air smells so strong of codfish" in line 7. In this previous quote, the author uses figurative language to portray this imagery that appeals to the sense of her smell. The speaker then states, "With creamy iridescent coats of mail, with small iridescent flies crawling on them." This description appeals to the sense of sight and uses adjectives such as creamy, iridescent, and small to describe the fish and the flies. Additionally, the author uses a metaphor to describe the scales of the fish. She describes them as coats of mail.
You should dip your hand in, your wrist will ache immediately. Your bones will begin to ache and your hand will burn as if the water were a transmutation of fire. The excerpt uses the nouns hand, wrist, and bones, as well as the verbs ache and burn. Ache, which is repeated to cause an effect on the reader. Bishop does a juxtaposition between fire and water, saying that the water will burn as if the water were transmutation of fire.
Another example is when she states, "If you tasted it, it would taste bitter, then briny, then surely burn your tongue." This imagery appeals to the sense of taste. There is a repetition of the verb taste followed by the adjectives bitter and briny, because it's imagery.
It is like what we imagine knowledge to be: dark, salt, clear, moving, utterly free. After exploring nature through her senses, Bishop compares nature to knowledge directly. She uses adjectives to appeal to the senses and generate imagery. She also uses a rhyme for the purpose of the audience better understanding her point.
Now, let's talk about the tone and mood present in the poem.
It's an ancient wooden capstan, cracked, with two long bleached handles and some melancholy stains, like ironwork has rusted. The author develops a melancholic mood throughout the entire poem. We can see this on this line. She uses the adjectives cracked and rust and the noun melancholy to form this tone.
The tone is further developed in lines 34 and 35 because the noun decline. She states, "We talk of the decline in the population and of codfish and herring." Additionally, the speaker seems to be familiar with fishing, suggesting this might not be the first time she came here. This creates a nostalgic mood. Let's discuss the stylistic devices present in the poem. When Bishop states, "All is silver, the heavy surface of the sea, swelling slowly as if considering spilling over, is opaque," in lines 13 to 15, it is important to notice that silver can be a symbol. Silver is a color associated with wealth and riches, so Bishop implies that knowledge is wealth. She uses a metaphor to describe that knowledge is always increasing, because it describes it is an ocean which is swelling slowly. The speaker also describes the ocean as opaque, meaning it is clear and easy to understand, just like knowledge.
Cold, dark, deep, and absolutely clear, which is repeated in lines 47 and then on line 60. I have seen it over and over, the same sea, the same, slightly, indifferently, swinging above the stones, icily free above the stones, and then the world.
The repetition of the phrase "above the stones" makes the point that the ocean is above the stones. This can be interpreted as if knowledge were above us, since the ocean symbolizes knowledge. This links to the theme. This means that knowledge transcends while we do not. When talking about the structure, this poem is a free verse, composed of 4 stanzas, 1 shift, and 84 lines. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed our tutorial.